Hello everyone, Ken and Loa here, this time with the Vega Conflict Eradication event that is going to happen in the next 16 hours after I'm done recording this video. So the whole idea of Eradication is General Gear pretty much goes crazy after being inflicted with the alien plague, and for the most part getting prizes is pretty similar to what we have had so far this Xeno season. So for event targets, you have the Demon Corp level 27 through 37, which aren't really good enough for point wise to really get any of the good prizes. I would say maybe you can get some level 1 stuff by killing the Demon Corp platoons, but pretty much you have to kill the hive fleets or higher in order to get any level 2 or 3 stuff, unless you are going to be grinding through those all day. So level 37s give 2400 points. The hive fleets level 55 solo targets give 24,000, which is still very low for compared to the rest of the targets that we're going to see here. The co-op hives give 6,000 more points, so if you can do co-op, that is beneficial for you. Now right here is the Reaper fleets, and the Reaper fleets are when the points really start getting to be a decent point, especially if you already have stuff like Punisher cruisers that can really deal with the Reaper fleets. So they start out at 52,000 at level 60, and they only go up to level 80 this time, not level 90 that we have seen in the Alien Decimation and some of the Alien Mobilizations. And they give 240,000 points for a single kill of the level 80 Reapers. So that is really good if you have really good marked up Punishers to deal with them. Also, you get Xeno Rupture blueprints and Decimator cutter boxes from those. And interestingly enough, you do get the Mark 5 box from the 80s, which maybe you can get a few good Mark 5 patterns out of those boxes a little bit easier, since they usually are from level 85 and above, if I remember correctly. And then the barrage fleets are usually harder. I would say the barrage hives are harder. They give more points as well, or at least level 75 especially and above. You get Xeno Shatter blueprints and Annihilator battleship boxes. And for the level 80s, look at that, 500,000 points. All for my account personally, I only need to kill 6 of these level 80 barrage hive fleets, and I have all the new blueprints that I need. And there is the Annihilator Mark 5 box at the level 80 instead of the level 85 and above there. Now the unknown outposts, the alien bases, they have these new turret boxes, which I'll be getting to in a moment. You have the level 40s, which have the bronze box for tier 5.5 turrets. The level 50 is the silver boxes, level 60 is the gold boxes, and you get the Exterminator Mark II box. And then the 70s, you get a tier 6 box, bronze box, and Exterminator Mark III, Mark 4, Mark 5, and silver box, gold box, and Suppressor Specialist Mark 5 box. And what is really one of the basically the bosses of this event is the Gears Fortress level 100s. I have no idea how hard those will be, and I'll probably have to showcase someone else doing them because I just don't have the markups or the equipped exterminators to kill any of them. But it's 1.5 million points if you can kill one in one go. Event store, you get the Suppressor Specialist 1.5 mil, the standard Exterminator blueprint, Annihilator blueprint, Decimator blueprint, and Punisher Cruiser blueprint, all for around 1.3 million and above. I mean 1,350,000 and above there. The new Seeker missile 1, 2, and 3. Xeno Armored Hold 1, 2, and 3 as well. 50,000, 200,000, and 500,000 for level 1 through 3 there. And Talonite Plates. Frenzied Scatter Missile 1, reusable item. Brutal Gatling Ray Turret, and Boosted AP Driver Turret, all level 1s. And then there is the standard silver prize box, gold prize box, and core boxes. Resources. And here is what is contained in the different boxes. The loot boxes from the level 40 unknown outposts, the standard Infernal Wave Driver, resistors, and Damocles stuff. Silver boxes, the Damocles hull, and standard Infernal Wave, resistor, and upgrade stuff. Here is the new stuff though. The turret boxes have the Frenzied Psycho Missile turret stuff, Brutal Gatling Ray turret stuff, the higher, not only just level 1 from the event store. And you have Frenzied Plasma Missile turret, Boosted AP Driver turret, and the brand new Spectre Wings reusable items. And then the silver box, you can get up to level 3 of each respectable item. The gold box, you cannot get a level 1 item, so if you want level 2 or level 3, a higher chance, the gold box is the way to go for that, because you can only get level 2 or level 3 for any of those items. The tier 6 boxes have the brand new Disintegrator Cannon turret, Rupture Beam turret, Cluster Missile turret, Shadow Driver turret, and the heavy Talonite Plates armor that we have seen just once before this event here. Then similarly, the silver box contains the level 3s of each item, except heavy Talonite only goes to level 2. And then the gold box, which is the same. Of the other boxes, you can only get level 2 or level 3. So if you can kill the level 90s or the Gears Fortresses, you can get a higher chance at the level 3 items there. And then what's in the silver prize boxes, stuff that I wouldn't really say is worthwhile. The gold boxes, same thing. Now here is the brand new content, the new Suppressor Specialist hull here. Repair time 37 minutes, which is a little bit at the lower end considering its HP is 4,500. It's not as repair efficient for the hull as a Punisher, for an example, or an Annihilator battleship. I think has better repair time for the hull itself. It has very terrible max mass here at just under 10,000. The Decimator Cutter, I say, has a pretty bad amount of mass, or at least for what I would want to use a Decimator for, and the Suppressor here doesn't even have as much base max mass at Mark 1 than the Decimator does at Mark 1, so that is very disappointing. The speed and turning rate is pretty much exactly the same as a cruiser, and the sector speed as well. The special thing about the Suppressor is the damage to squadrons is plus 75%, which is unique to that hull, and also it gets the max targets too, so it basically has a built-in targeting computer level 1 in it. And surprisingly enough, it does actually have a very low unladen mass of 488 tons, so that's not bad, I guess. And the same Alien Resist has 1 shield slot, 2 armor slots, 2 specials, and 5 guns. And I'm pretty sure that CS Chris here hasn't said whether or not the Suppressor gets any new slots at Mark 4 or so, like most ships do here. So the Suppressor, I would say, if you can get it, it's a unique hull, definitely. It is mentioned that it does have a 360-degree gun arc, so it's basically an alien corvette. Pretty much it all depends on if Kixeye makes squadrons have much higher HP. Otherwise, this ship is pretty much not very useful at all. So if you can get enough points to get it, I would say you can go for it, but I would rather get the Xeno armored hold probably more so than the suppressor. It's really, I would say it's mostly up to your preference here on the suppressor hull here. The Seeker Mine, level 1, 2, and 3, it is supposed to be a really rapid firing weapon. So we'll, I would say we would have to see how it performs in order for whether or not it actually would be worth getting. It has pretty low DPS of 76 at level 3, though it does have pretty low weight here. It has a medium-ish range arc of up to 3,500 meters with no blind spot. It has pretty good speed, but it has very little blast radius of 50 meters, so you would pretty much need to have AM warheads on it in order to make any use of splash damage on here. And keep in mind that they probably will make a Xeno version of this, like the Xeno Disintegrator cannon for an example, and then there's the normal one. So if they come out with a Xeno Seeker missile, that's probably going to be way better in all respects compared to the normal Seeker missile. So I don't really see that there's much of a point in getting this weapon. If you do want to get this weapon, just go straight for the level 3. The level 1 and 2 are not much different from the level 3 mass-wise, and the level 3 has, of course, the highest DPS out of all of them, and it only weighs 600 tons, so the level 1 and 2, I would say don't bother getting those. Here's the brand new Xeno Armored Hold, which, after reading its stats, it is, I'd say it's very interesting on how much it weighs, especially compared to how much HP it gives, because when we look at the normal Armored Hold here, after I log back in, the normal Armored Hold has 320 tons for 950 hit points. So you basically get 3 times the hit points of the mass. And Xeno Armored Hold definitely does not get that bonus of what Armored Hold gives. It has about maybe 1.3 HP per ton here, and then it just gets worse the higher the level it is. At level 3, it almost has 1-to-1 HP to mass ratio. For being how heavy it is, that just isn't really that great. But it does get the repair bonus that Xeno items do give, so it gets 50% less repair time for the amount of HP, so that is a bonus. But considering how much it weighs, it's just not a very attractive item, in my opinion, unless you just have 2,000 mass just lying around that, and an Epney special that you can put this into. But otherwise, I would say it isn't really that useful. Maybe on the Punisher with the armor reduction at the higher marks, maybe you can fit these on here a lot better, but otherwise I don't know. I would say that the level 1, considering that it probably has the best mass to health ratio, I of course didn't do any math prior to recording this video, so I would say the level 1, especially since it only costs 50,000 points anyway, is probably the most valuable out of all 3 of them. I mean, the level 2 and 3, I would say just get if you want to have much higher cargo holding capacity. For an example, if you're making the ultimate cargo fleet, or if you are using fleets to take resources from other players' bases and stuff like that, Armored Hold would be useful in carrying much more cargo space for that. And now we have the stats of the Frenzied Seco Missile, Brutal Gatling Ray, a boosted AP Driver, and the basically all the basic epic level turrets. For the epic level turrets, just look at the level 3. I would say the level 1 and 2 are not really worth getting unless you, for some reason, do not have the blueprint. And ironically enough, the Frenzied Psycho Missile at level 2 is actually worse than the blueprint, the rare level blueprint of the Psycho Missile Turret level 3, because the level 3 only weighs 1,688 tons and it has 313 DPS. Well, this one only has 260 and it weighs 1,700, so you get worse mass and you have less DPS. So the level 1 and 2 are pretty much worthless for the Frenzied Psycho Missile. The level 3, however, you do get a tiny bit of a bonus on DPS, 28 DPS over the normal Psycho Missile Turret 3, but it also weighs 500 more tons. So unless you're really good at farming these, considering that the level 3, you pretty much have to fight level 50 bases or level 60 bases, I do believe. So unless you're really good at killing a lot of those and just really going to town at farming these, I don't really see that it's worth getting at this point. So I mean, it's a base upgrade, but it's not really by much. The Brutal Gatling Ranter, it's energy, so you have to use focused apertures, which the level 5 focused apertures adds double the mass, which Brutal Gatling Ranter at 3 weighs 2,700. That's probably not gonna fit on anything. And the DPS is only 300. I say only 300 because considering it's an energy weapon that weighs that much, it should be way higher than this. And even the Frenzied Psycho Missile, I would say the Frenzied Psycho Missile should be around 400 DPS to make it so that it's actually a decent increase over the normal blueprint. And then the Brutal Gatling Ray, it does have a decent DPS increase, but it just weighs so much more that it's not really worth using, and you have to use focused apertures to even have a half decent range on these. And now we get to the boosted AP driver turret. The boosted AP driver turret, the level 3, is much better than the standard AP driver turret with 150 DPS compared to 91, so it is worth getting if you currently use AP driver turrets. But at the same time, there are better alternatives like Storm Driver Turret that everyone loves to use. So if you have Storm Driver Turrets or anything like that, or Gemini Turret, boosted AP Driver Turret, just there really isn't a point to it, I would say. So just skip the AP Driver Turret altogether. I mean, these two at least have higher DPS than what we have currently before this event, but now we get to the legendary cannon turrets, well, legendary turrets, and we get the Disintegrator cannon turret. Now this weapon is much better than the Gatling Ray turret. Just looking at the DPS, it's over 400 for an energy turret. Finally we get one that has decent DPS for how little range they have, and it weighs 3,400 compared to the 2,700, so you get 700 more tons, but you get over 100 more DPS, and not only that, but you gain 2,000 hit points on your base modules for every gun slot they use this on. For an example, the bridge, you can get up to 6,000 more HP by putting these on there. But at the same time, you have to use focused apertures to increase the range if you choose to increase the range. And with the high percentages of the energy focused apertures, the range pretty much ruins this weapon in my opinion. So it's unless you're really having trouble with blitz fleets, I would say the Disintegrator cannon turret really it isn't really a good turret for what it's meant for. well, maybe not what it's meant for, but in practical purposes, especially since everyone's using exterminators that will outrange the Disintegrator cannon turret anyway. So it's a decent weapon, but it could have been a lot better for mostly the range. The Rupture Beam turret, its range is also the main issue that I have with this weapon, which it only has 3,800, which is less than the Burst Ray turret, I do believe. If I guess I can just look through here. Burst Ray turret is, ironically enough, one of the few turrets I don't actually have. Yep, it has less range than a Burst Ray turret. So you have to get really, really close in order for this thing to even fire. And also it has that extremely long charge time, or at least I would guess that it does if it was based off of the ship version. So you have that really long charge time, no range really, but when it actually fires, it has the highest DPS of 536, which is, I would say, that really does compensate for the range, but at the same time, if it never fires, then it's not really worth getting. And it also weighs a lot of 3,700 tons, with the very high percentages from the focused apertures makes it not really an attractive weapon for me personally. The cluster missile turret, now this turret is actually might be considered an upgrade here compared to the Psycho Missile turret that we currently have. We have Cluster Missile 1, which has 257 DPS, which is actually really good for a level 1 item. It only weighs 1900, but really the things that the turret levels that are attractive is level 2 and level 3. The level 2 has just like 9 DPS over the Psycho Missile turret 3. It does weigh a lot more, but I would say the Cluster Missile turret has less of, I'm pretty sure it has less of a spread there. It has the same range. It has the same speed, I think, too. So basically what you're sacrificing is the spread for the most part for the area of effect radius. So take that as you will. And then it does get the health bonus, and since old Xeno stuff pretty much has more HP than it does shield, this is a really good bonus here. So you will get around 350 DPS maybe with the level 2 against pretty much everything. The disappointing thing is that the min range there is much, well, not much larger, but it is considerably larger than the Psycho Missile turret. I don't remember offhand. I guess I can just look here. The min range is 150 meters larger, so it is considerably larger for being the style of turret that it is. But the 7,000 meters range is definitely a good range for this weapon. The level 3 is definitely the only turret. It's the only turret really worth getting, I would say, for the different levels, because it has the 386 DPS plus the 15%, so it gets maybe it can get up to 440 DPS or so against HP or 450, and that I would say is a good enough increase over Psycho Missile turret to consider refitting these on here. But its area of effect radius is really, really bad at only 100 meters compared to 450 there. So they have to be either really, really close to each other in order to actually hit multiple targets, or it's just going to be a single target focusing weapon that I don't know. I think, considering it's a reusable item, I might just stick with the Psycho Missile turrets, and I'm probably not really going to kill the bases much this event, so I'm most likely not even going to get any of these anyway. So Cluster Missile turret, it is a considerable alternative to Psycho Missile turret 3, and considering the other turrets, I would say that that's a pretty good thing, considering that this frenzied one is barely any better. Energy turrets have no range, and their range increasing special weighs way too much, and then the boosted AP driver is pretty worthless. And now we come to the Shatter Driver turret, which is probably one of the most disappointing turrets out of this entire list, considering that it's legendary. And it has 212 DPS, which is less than Storm Driver turret, it's less than Gemini turret, the main two projectile turrets. It does have more range than the other two, but not by much in terms of Gemini turret, and 850 more meters over Storm Driver turret, but it has way more min range. So if you're getting blitzed by any Punishers, Decimators, whatever you're fighting on your base, that min range really ruins it compared to those other turrets. Its speed is lower. It does get shield bypass, so surprisingly enough. Well, I shouldn't. Does the normal Shatter Driver get the... Just making sure. Yeah, the normal Shatter Driver doesn't get shield bypass, so that's kind of surprising that they would have that on there. But it only gets 212 DPS, and it's most likely gonna miss a lot if the opponent is using decoys that are just gonna strafe out of the way of these turrets. Even with Iridium Magnets or Iridium Arrays 5, it's really not gonna hit much. And its DPS just isn't high enough. For its DPS to be even considerable for me, especially since how Shatter Driver works is that 70% of the DPS is in the initial hit, and 50% is from the 10% per 5 of the 5 fragments or so that it gives off. So you're realistically probably not even gonna be hitting that DPS on there. So what I would say is that the DPS would need to be 300 before I would even consider refitting anything with Shatter Driver Turret 3. And it's a reusable item, so I would have to farm for it anyway, instead of just getting a blueprint. Frenzied Plasma Missile Turret. It's a decent weapon for 232 DPS, but realistically, I would just say stick with Cycle Missile Turret. Cycle Missile Turret has more DPS by like 90 points, and it weighs it pretty much the same. This thing, the Plasma Missile Turret, gets slightly more range, but it also gets slightly more min range. Its speed is the same, and it does get a really big area of effect radius, but at the same time, I would say that Psycho Missile Turret is just better with that higher DPS on there, and then the range, it still can be sniped, so you don't have the reason to refit anything with this, because it is unsnipeable, because Shatter Driver can easily snipe that. Spectre Wings. Most wing type weapons don't really do much, because the squadrons, they just die so fast that it just doesn't really matter what's on there. But considering how it is, it does get 200 DPS compared to the best alternative of 154 from Bomber Wing. It does weigh considerably more as well, by nearly 300 tons more. It gets 30-second flight time, which is good. It gets the longest scramble range out of all of them, I do believe. Let me just stop this. Put that repair there. So it has the same range as Interceptor Wing, so that's not bad. Its speed is terrible at 1200. It should be more than that, I would say, in order to be worth it, unless they're gonna come out with a fleet base special eventually that's an elite squadron for bases, but I'm not really thinking that they'll make that anytime soon. If anything, the HP on there isn't bad though at 900, but since it's so slow, it's probably gonna die anyway. And then it has the shield bypass. So overall, I would say the turrets are the biggest letdown of this event, because bases are really, really terrible against the Xeno Shatter Exterminator combos. Sniping fleets, they just annihilate bases. They can 3-star like level 75 bases with ease. And these turrets, they just aren't a big enough upgrade to anything that we have to counter anything that they'll send at us. So it's just a really, really big letdown, especially since they're reusable items. I mean, if they were blueprints, I could forgive them for that if they were blueprints instead of reusable items. But the blueprints that they do give are interesting, especially the Xeno Armored Hold, I would say, is probably the best one out of the three, because the Suppressor is a really, really a specialized hull that's made for a specific purpose. I mean, it's interesting, but I just don't know how effective it'll be in practice. And then the Seeker missile just doesn't really have that good of a DPS to really justify using it on anything. I mean, at least it doesn't take 2 days to refit each one, probably, but unless they come out with a Xeno Seeker missile, I would say that weapon isn't really worth getting either. So that is what my thoughts are on the Eradication event for June 8th of this year, and all of those prizes. So this is my first time making an event post, and I'm probably one of the least skilled people at actually making these, so give me some feedback in the comments below if you would like to. And I think that's everything. One thing to note about the Suppressor is that it takes only 4 days, and I think 16 hours to refit. It was in the event video, so check that out if you haven't. But that is all of the prizes, how you get all the targets in this event. Doesn't really seem to be that bad, so hopefully this was helpful or insightful on anything, and as always, have a wonderful day out there.